United States Congress. This is part of the new 1st Congressional District, Kenmore.
Feel free to take
and
the
we
comfy
have
seat.
people here from the 46th Legislative District, the 32nd Legislative District, and the 1st Legislative District. The 32nd is primarily shoreline, some of northeast Seattle, and all the way up into Snohomish County, including Linwood. And the 46th runs from Husky Stadium to Kenmore, and the 1st is Bothell, North Kirkland, and also heavy representation up in Snohomish County. So I want to welcome everybody here. I've been to 2 other events on Sunday, and it does my heart a lot of good to know that we have a real chance of electing a conservative Republican to the United States Congress. And I want to introduce you to John Bob. Stand up here on the brick platform.
This is the brick platform.
No microphone.
No microphone. Perfect. I don't need a microphone. So if you can't hear me, let me know. Usually I put my wife in the back of the room. So I don't know. Well, some of you don't know me, so I'll tell you a little bit about myself. For the rest of you, sorry to bore you, but I'll be quick. I live in the Arlington area, which geographically is in the middle of the new district. But yes. So I'll tell you where the new district is first. Maybe that's a better place to start. The new congressional district runs from the Canadian border all the way down to Kirkland, Redmond, Kenmore, Medina, Clyde Hill, Yarrow Point, Hunts Point. Yes, Duval, Carnation. It's all of Whatcom County with the exception of Bellingham. Oh. Thank goodness. Yes. If you saw the votes from the 2nd District last year, you know why, or last time around, you know why. We don't want Bellingham. So Rick can have Bellingham. So it's all of Whatcom without Bellingham. It is all of East Skagit County with the exception of Burlington and Cedar Woolley. Mount Vernon is in. Why they went across the freeway, I don't know. It's a great case of gerrymandering. It's wonderful how they kind of do that. And then it's all of East Snohomish County with the exception of the city limits of Marysville and my hometown Arlington, which really hacks me off. Yeah, I live east of Arlington, so I'm still in a congressional district, but they did that for Rick. That was a little bit of a poke in the eye to me personally. In 2010, I ran for Congress in the 2nd District, and I ran against Rick Larson, and on election night, I was ahead 1,500 votes. The 2nd District was one of the last districts called in the entire nation because it was that close. And I can tell you, this race could be that close. I'll elaborate on that a little bit. But so it's East Snohomish County, and then of course it's Northeast King County. Now 60% of the population in the new district is north of the King County line. All in area where I ran before in the 2nd District, all in area where I won before. My challenge in this race is to get to know people down here, to build the relationships in Northeast King County. So Valerie Huntsberry, stand up and wave, Valerie, so everybody can see who you are. Valerie is my King County chair down here, and she's going to make sure I spend lots of time down here in the next 83 days. Not that I'm counting. 83 days. And you should be too. This is arguably the most important election in our lifetimes. I think you have to go back a long, long, long way in history to identify an election cycle that's as important to, I think, the continuity and the future of the Republic, as our founding fathers envisioned it. This election, I think, we have a choice. You have a choice. I think you're going to choose between a philosophy of bigger government, more government programs, more stimulus packages, that worked out really well, more debt, bigger deficits. I think that's going to be the one choice. You see, government is a solution. The other side, I happen to believe in the American people. I happen to believe in the ingenuity and the intelligence and the innovation of American people. And if you set that free, if you keep government at a minimum, if you keep taxes at a minimum, if you keep government intrusion, and by golly, if you actually pay attention to the Constitution and you keep the government at a minimum, you set that free, and you will see our economy begin to pick up because people will make investments, they'll create jobs, they'll provide goods and services for their fellow citizens, create jobs. Generally, that's the difference that people, that's the choice that people will make in this election cycle. And I think that's the choice from the very top to all of the legislative races, all of them. That's the choice. That's the difference. And by golly, I'll tell you what, one thing I've learned about King County, I've been down here, there are more Republicans than I ever thought there were. I'm serious. But they kind of go, I'm a Republican. I kind of do it that way. But it's true. But I got to tell you something. In all seriousness, if we believe Republican principles are good for America, they're good for the future of our children and our grandchildren, then we dang well better stand up and say so this election cycle.
That's right.
This is critical. This is a pivotal point in the history of our country, this election cycle. Anyway, I was telling you about me. I live in Arlington. I live actually east of Arlington, and lived there all my life. Went to school up there. Born and raised on a dairy farm. Met my wife when we were like 14 years old. We got married shortly after my 19th birthday, and in September we'll be married 42 years. I can't believe she put up with me that long. It's amazing. And she knew better. But we have 4 kids. They're not kids anymore. The youngest is 23. And we have 9 grandchildren. So, you know, it's part of the reason part of what motivates me, those grandkids, those kids. I want a future for them. I want them to enjoy the opportunities that I have. You know, I want them out there. Whether they grab them or not, that's their decision in life. But this election is about opportunity for our kids, our grandkids. At any rate, my mom got leukemia at 41 years of age. She passed away. My dad said I had no reason to run the farm anymore for working 7 days a week, 16 hours a day. So if now you want a farm, it's time to take over the business. And I took over the family business, and we were off and running at the ripe old age of 20 years of age. So there you go. So I learned a little bit about running a business. I know what it means to sign the front side of a paycheck, which is sort of rare in elective office nowadays. But well, it's true. I mean, you probably have more people in the House of Representatives right now, the U.S. House, and probably in the State House, that actually know what that means than you have at any time in history. And I think that's why you've seen some of the policies that have come out of the Republican House, because people get it. You know, the other side doesn't understand how the policies that they're propagating affect business. When you say uncertainty, they don't understand why there's uncertainty out there. They don't get this. You know, and my opponent this election cycle is going to come out and he's going to say, she is going to say, she is going to say, well, the mantra from the left is going to be that they're too extreme. You know, I got to tell you, anybody here excited about Paul Ryan besides me? I got to tell you, I love this guy. I love his message. I love who he is. And I love the fact that he can deliver this message. He's a smart guy. Very bright guy. Very excited about him. But you see, they're going to demagogue. They're already starting to demagogue him. Demagogue me. Well, we're too extreme. These policies go too far. One of the reporters asked me on primary night, Seattle Times kid, young fella from Seattle Times kid. He says, well, how do you respond to that? And I says, I'm going to tell you what I think is extreme. I think $16 trillion of debt is extreme. I think the debt that is over 100% of our GDP is extreme. I think it's extreme that every child that's born is in debt $50,000. I think it's extreme that every taxpayer owes $148,000. I think it's extreme that we can continue to run 4 consecutive years of $1.2 or $1.3 trillion deficits, and that the U.S. Senate hasn't passed a budget in over 3 years. That there's 23.5 million people under or unemployed. I said, that's extreme. I said, who are they calling us extreme? But if you want more of the same, the message is real clear to your Democrat friends. Tell them to vote for these guys, because that's working out real well. It's not working out at all. So, so we've got to deal with the issue of uncertainty. There's trillions and trillions of dollars sitting on the sideline business is not investing. Why are they not investing? It's that uncertainty, that animal. And we need to address it. Part of it is we've got to stop spending money we don't have. You all have to balance your budgets or you go to jail. These guys don't balance their budgets. They just refuse. And they're not going to jail for what they're doing, but I'm just thinking, maybe. So we need to balance our budgets. We got to stop spending money we don't have, which means we need to have a really serious conversation about entitlement spending, okay? And this is going to be one of the toughest conversations we've had. And, there are some people out there that think I need to come down here and learn how to speak King County, whatever that means. I don't know what that means. But my response to that is, I only know one way to tell the truth. Just straight up. And we're in trouble, folks. The $16 trillion of debt, we're in trouble. And entitlements comprise 43% of spending, okay? So we can't stick our head in the sand, keep doing the same thing we've been doing, and expect a different outcome. So we've got to have that tough conversation. And I tell you, if we can reform these programs so that they last into the future, and it'll be a wee bit painful, but I can tell you, if we wait, it'll be a whole lot more painful. Valerie and I were talking about this on the way down here. I was talking about this in the year 2000 when I ran against Rick Larson when it was an open seat. Jack Metcalf resigned. I ran for the U.S. House in 2000. Lost that by a very narrow margin too. That one wasn't decided for about a week and a half. But we talked about it at that time: health savings accounts, retirement accounts. George Bush talked about it when he got elected in 2000. How do you take a small portion of your Social Security funds, add an option, nobody would force you to do that, put them aside in retirement accounts. Just think how much better off we'd be if we'd have started that 10 years ago. 10 years ago. So we can continue to kick the can down the road, do the same things we're doing, but I can tell you, we're about to hit the fiscal cliff. Some call it a cliff, I call it a wall. In fact, on January 1st, 2013, there are $500 billion worth of tax increases that occur if Congress does nothing. Tax-mageddon, some call it. And there's not an individual that won't be affected in some way in this country. Congress has to act. And so you've got to deal with the spending, you've got to deal with the entitlements, but we're not going to balance our budget unless we grow the economy. Okay, it's just that simple. And we need to get our arms around the regulatory agencies. I mean, the EPA is probably the worst of the worst. They're the poster child for agencies out of control. I shared with Valerie on the way down here, in 1996, Congress passed what was called the Congressional Review Act, which gave Congress gave Congress the ability to repeal regulation. It's been used once. Congress needs to have the courage to grab hold of these regulatory agencies and say no. Okay? You need to get rid of the duplicative, you need to get rid of the onerous. I'm not saying we need to get rid of regulation entirely, but some of this is just way over the top. I can tell you, I'm on the Snohomish County Council now. I served in the legislature for 3 terms, was elected to the Snohomish County Council. I've been there 11 years. I tell people every great and noble idea of every congressman and every state legislator rolls downhill to the local government where we get it all. And we have to try to figure out how to make all these great ideas work for the people. And that's one advantage I have in this race. I served in the legislature. Frankly, I voted for some things I wish I hadn't. I wonder why I did that. Now I got to deal with this stuff. I can give you examples. It's like, why did I support that? But, working at local government, you begin to see the unintended consequences of bad law or bad regulation. So my opponent doesn't have that, doesn't have a clue. So anyway, you've got to get your arms around regulatory agencies, got to stop spending money we don't have. We need tax reform. We need comprehensive tax reform. We need to keep the Bush tax cuts. We need to do the comprehensive tax reform. And, the ideas have been out there. It's sort of interesting that the Simpson-Bowles Commission put out the idea of, why don't we just lower the corporate tax rates to 28% and eliminate the loopholes. This was the Simpson-Bowles Commission. They've just punted. They've done nothing. we're in trouble. We need to do comprehensive tax reform. And we need to choose, and by the way, comprehensive tax reform, in my opinion, includes a repeal of the allegedly Affordable Care Act, commonly known as Obamacare. My wife says I can't say Obamacare, so I call it the allegedly Affordable Care Act. And finally, we need to choose to be energy independent. We can do this. I mean, it's amazing to me, in the middle of our country, there's an oil reserve confirmed to be somewhere around 3 trillion barrels of oil. What's accessible, they figure, is maybe 30 to 60% of that. When you think about that, when you think that the Mid-East of all the known reserves is about 800 billion barrels, we have more than the Middle East in the middle of our country, but we're not drilling oil. We can choose to be energy independent. That doesn't mean we don't need to look at new technologies. But doesn't mean we need to put ourselves on the sacrificial altar either. We need to utilize our natural resources if we're going to see economic recovery in this country. We need to do this. So, we have two very different philosophies this election cycle. Very different. And, you know, we're trying to figure out what our theme for our campaign was going to be a little bit here. And I think it's just very simple. You have a choice this election cycle. And we need to get out and talk to our friends and our neighbors and our family. Yeah, it's okay. Talk to your family about this. Go to church, talk to people at church about this. The clubs you go to. But you need to talk to people about this. This is an important election cycle. Very important. So on primary night, we finished at, let's see, it was 43.02 primary night. The late votes have come in. We're actually going to finish probably about 45%.
Woohoo!
Susan Delbini
Right.
spent $2.5 million, and we'll finish just slightly under 23%.
Yes. How much of that was her money?
But we did a poll. We ran a poll. The poll numbers show that this race is about a horse apiece, as my father used to say. It's just about dead even. It's just about dead even. Okay. There's a number of undecided votes. There's a large percentage of independent. A lot of independent voters down here too. A lot of independent voters down here. So we can persuade them. They'll come over our way, I think, if we get our message out. So we have a message that's good for America. It's good. It provides opportunity for the future, for our kids and our grandkids. And we need to get it out there. So we can win this race. It's going to be a very, very close race, right to the end. Trust me. We will not know on election night who won this race. I hate to tell you. I hate to think about that because I've been through this so many times. We're going to be sitting here counting votes again for the next week, but it is going to be very, very tight. So every vote's going to count. We're going to have to make sure we get our voters out. Not only do we need to try to raise enough money to get on TV, we don't have to match our dollar for dollar. We don't. We have a better message. We don't have to match our dollar for dollar. We can do better. But what we do have to have is the grassroots out knocking on doors, making the phone calls to make sure our people get to the polls. Only 35% turnout in the primary. That's terrible. And frankly, I think the Democrats did a better job of getting their votes out than we did. So it's up to us. We have 83 days to determine the future of this country. Whether the principles that our founding fathers believed in, that this country was founded on, those principles inherent in our Constitution and our Declaration of Independence, whether those things live for future generations, or whether they die in the next election, or begin to die in the next election, we'll know in 83 days. And I think this election is that critical. I don't think that's overstated at all. I don't think so. I wake up in the middle of the night thinking about this stuff. It's an illness, my wife says. Anyway, so I thank you all for coming tonight. I'll be happy to take a few questions if we have time. Yes?
Can you recap your Snohomish County experience and your legislative experience?
Yeah, I kind of went over that sort of fast. I was elected to the state legislature in 1994, so I started in 95 and served in 2000. What's important about the legislative experience